In this video, let's see how to create these exploded axonometric diagrams using SketchUp and D5. We will also do some final touches inside Photoshop. For this video, I am going to use the model from one of our studio's latest projects, Marudam. I will have the walkthrough link attached in the description. Take a look at it in your free time. Now let's jump straight into the video. I have a detailed model for this project. You guys can use any one of your models to follow along with the video. If the model has furniture and interiors done, the final result will look more detailed and neat rather than exploding an empty model. I started with moving the roof up along the z-axis. I wanted the roof and the beam structure and the two levels of the residence to be seen clearly. But there were few elements which go till the second level, but I wanted them to be at the ground level. So we get the understanding of the space like this double height perforated wall, which is the background for one of the courtyards. And few elements like this double height chandelier, Jula and the metal fans were placed in a way that we get clear understanding of the design through its positioning. Since we didn't build this SketchUp file for the purpose of doing this exploded view, there were a lot of corrections to be made accordingly. So if you guys are also using any of your completed models to create this illustration, it's better to duplicate the file and start working on the new one. I also moved these louvers in the facade along the x-axis just to balance the composition. When you are moving the elements inside SketchUp, try to have an idea of which view you would like and work based on them. We can obviously finalize it inside D5. I'm just saying have a rough idea of the angle you want to cover. It will help you to frame the composition better. I was having two views in mind which I wanted to work on. Once you are happy with how it looks, save and close the SketchUp file. Open a new file in D5 and import the SketchUp file. Place the model inside the canvas and go to Object panel on the left and turn off the terrain. Then go to Camera and increase field of view to a much higher value to get the parallel projection effect. But be careful when you are working with such high field of view. Even if you move your mouse a little faster, the screen will move very fast. Once you find an angle that you like, click on this icon and save it as a scene. I also saved one more scene to cover few elements which were hidden in the previous view. Because of the higher field of view glitch that I told earlier, I saved another scene with a lesser field of view value for easy navigation through the model. Keep the sun at 12 noon when you're working with materials so the shadows won't affect your view. Using the material picker, I selected a face and using the HSV sliders in the base color tab, I picked a muted sage green color. Then I copied this material and started applying it to all the surface in the model. I am using D5's default glass material and wavy glass material for the skylights. Then I continue to apply the same green color for even furniture, decor elements, etc. Make sure that none of the faces is left in its default material. I created an emissive material for these wall lamps along the corridor. I also didn't change the color of the books in the reading nook. Working on this part is when I realized I want to highlight a few elements in this project using a secondary color. So I went with orange and gave it a metallic finish. Then I gave the same orange material to all the elements that I wanted to highlight. I also changed the color of the main beam grid to orange. I also made this display unit in the same orange color, but I retained its glass property. I used water material available inside D5 for the pond and the pool outside. I also imported a green screen model for the background, so I can change the color easily. If you are using D5 3.0 or above, you can find an inbuilt option to change the color. But if you are using any previous versions like me, this is the method you should follow. After scaling the screen to cover the whole background, go back to your scene. I went with the darker green shade for the background. Go to the effects panel and reduce highlights and bloom value to 0 and increase the highlight local exposure value to 1 and shadows local exposure value to 0.7. In environment tab, using these sliders, find a shadow angle that you like. Reduce the exposure value so that there is no portion which is bleached out. I also adjusted the white balance a bit and turned off the clouds. I saved this as a new scene. Click on these three dots and increase the sun disk radius to get softer shadows. You can also change the sunlight intensity if you want. There are no set values that you should follow for these things. You can pick what works for you, but don't forget to update your scene. Once you're happy with how it looks, go ahead and render it in 4K so that we get to see all the details clearly. After that, drag the image into Photoshop and start labeling the spaces. I'm using this pen tool to draw the white callout lines. You can write 2 or 3 lines about each space below the heading. The text size can be a lot smaller in comparison to the heading. I also added an overall title for the image and cropped the whole canvas to a portrait proportion. Using content aware, you can fill these empty spaces. Now, as the last step, move everything inside a group. Duplicate and merge one of the groups. Open camera raw filter and add grain and vignetting to your liking and click OK. These are the final results. See you all in the next video.